They say wars are fought over oil, over land, over power. But today, the battlefield has moved underground. Hidden beneath deserts, jungles, and mountains lies the most valuable weapon of the 21st century. 17 mysterious metals, known as rare earth elements. You can't see them, you can't touch them, but they run your entire world. The screen you're watching this on, the car outside, the satellite above, all of them depend on these invisible ingredients. And right now, one nation controls almost all of it, China. In 2025, a quiet announcement shook the world. Beijing declared new export restrictions on 12 rare earth elements, materials used in everything from iPhones to fighter jets. No threats, no missiles, no speeches. Just one line of policy. And within hours, global markets trembled. It was the start of a new kind of war. A war without bullets, without smoke, but with consequences far deadlier. For decades, the world ignored this shadow empire. Back in the 1980s, the United States led the world in mining and refining these rare elements. But as environmental laws tightened and costs rose, companies moved production overseas. China saw the opportunity. It invested quietly, built refineries, and by the time the world realized, Beijing controlled more than 70% of global rare earth mining and 90% of the world's refining capacity. Every smartphone, every missile, every EV motor passed, in one way or another, through China's hands. But why does this matter so much? Because rare earths are not just metals. They're the DNA of modern civilization. Neodymium makes your speakers sing. Dysprosium keeps jet engines stable. Europium lights your screen. And lanthanum? It's in every camera lens you've ever used. Without them, the world goes dark. Literally. In October 2025, Beijing tightened the noose even further. It restricted exports of neodymium, terbium, and dysprosium, claiming national security concerns. But behind that statement was something much bigger. The West had been challenging China's semiconductor dominance. This was Beijing's answer. You can't build your chips, your AI, or your weapons without us. In Washington, alarms went off. At the Pentagon, rare earths are considered strategic materials, as vital as oil. Reports showed that without Chinese imports, America's missile systems, radar arrays, and even electric F-35 jets could stop production within months. Meetings were called. Budgets shifted. But mining these metals isn't easy. Extracting them safely, refining them efficiently, takes decades of expertise China already mastered. And for the first time in modern history, the most powerful nations on Earth realized they no longer held the keys to their own technology. Meanwhile, far from the headlines, China began securing new sources. In Myanmar, militia-backed groups expanded illegal mines under Chinese contracts. Tons of rare earth ore shipped north every week, smuggled across the border under military escort. When asked why, a local miner said, "We don't even know what we're digging, only that it's worth more than gold." In Europe, leaders held emergency meetings. The European Union, Japan, and the U.S. formed an informal alliance to counter China's rare earth control. But behind closed doors, officials admitted it was too late. They could build rockets, data centers, and AI models, but without the raw materials, nothing could move forward. Every piece of advanced technology was chained to a single supply line. The story took a darker turn when analysts discovered that China's export restrictions didn't just hit raw materials. They targeted technology itself, specific grades of magnets, alloys, and even components used in 14-nanometer chips. In short, the message was clear. We own the foundation of your digital world. And as that reality sank in, the true cost of dependence became clear. Imagine a world where your phone can't be repaired, your cars can't run, your satellites can't launch. Not because of war, but because one nation turned off the switch. The irony? These materials aren't actually rare. They exist everywhere, in Africa, in Australia, even in the US. But China mastered the one thing others didn't: refining. It built an empire not of land, but of process, an empire where dust becomes dominance. In Texas, American engineers at MP Materials are trying to reverse the trend. For the first time in decades, neodymium magnets, the kind used in EVs and defense systems, are being produced on U.S. soil again. But insiders admit the gap is decades wide. It's like trying to build a race car while your rival already controls the fuel. And while the headlines talk about AI and space, the real power lies in what AI and rockets are made of. Control the elements, and you control the future. Behind the silence of trade agreements, there's tension building. Invisible, but everywhere. The West needs China's metals. China needs the West's markets, each side pretending it holds the upper hand. But both know, if this silent war turns hot, the entire global tech structure could collapse. Every empire has its currency. Rome had gold. The 20th century had oil. The 21st century, it belongs to the earth itself, to the unseen atoms that make our machines breathe. And the war for those atoms has already begun. But the real question no one wants to ask is, what happens next? In Beijing's high-security labs, engineers are already experimenting with synthetic rare earth substitutes, materials created using AI-designed chemistry. If they succeed, China won't just control the world's supply, it will control creation itself. And the rest of the world? They'll be permanently locked out of the next industrial revolution. Meanwhile, in Washington, defense analysts whisper about tech sovereignty. They know the next war won't begin with missiles. It'll begin with silence, when servers stop running and fighter jets won't launch. Because without magnets, chips, and sensors, even the strongest army becomes blind. In Europe, Germany and France have poured billions into Greenland's rare earth mines, hoping to reduce dependency. But almost every new site faces the same problem: environmental cost. Each ton of rare earth metal leaves behind 10 tons of toxic waste. Villages poisoned, rivers dead, forests stripped to clay. One Chinese miner once said, "We traded our blue skies for dominance, and the West quietly watched." Now the same West faces the same dilemma: to stay green or to stay alive in the tech race. Australia, sitting on some of the world's richest untapped deposits, has become the new frontier. Linus Corporation, with U.S. backing, is trying to build the free world's rare earth supply chain. But the shadow of China looms large, from price manipulation to quiet political pressure. In 2025, rare earth prices dropped overnight by 30% after China flooded the market. Analysts called it economic warfare in slow motion. Even Elon Musk once said, "Our biggest challenge isn't building rockets, it's finding the materials to make them." Think about that for a moment. The future of Mars depends on the mud under our feet. But this war isn't just economic, it's philosophical. China believes control equals stability. The West believes competition creates progress. Both are right, both are wrong, and both are trapped in a system that could collapse under its own demand. Every year, our hunger for tech doubles. More AI, more EVs, more chips, more satellites. But the planet can't keep up. To build one electric car battery requires more than 100 kilograms of rare earth metals. To build one AI supercomputer cluster, nearly a ton. Now multiply that by millions of devices, billions of people. You start to see the invisible tension between progress and survival. Scientists warn that at this rate, some of these elements could become economically extinct within 40 years. Not because they'll vanish, but because refining them will cost more than they're worth. And when that happens, the tech world will face something it has never seen before. Scarcity in an age of abundance. In quiet corners of Silicon Valley, investors are already funding asteroid mining projects. Private companies, backed by billionaires, believe the next gold rush isn't on Earth, it's in space. Asteroids made of neodymium, cerium, and dysprosium drift millions of miles away, untouched for billions of years. But getting there could take decades, and by then, the war down here might already be lost. In the end, the rare earth story isn't about metals. It's about control. It's about who gets to decide what the future looks like. And right now, that power is slipping through our fingers. Because while the world argues about AI ethics, climate, and politics, a silent empire is being built from dust, one that decides which nations rise and which fade into history. The war for rare earths isn't coming. It's already here. And if we don't understand it soon, the world we think we control might already belong to someone else.